There are new inflation numbers out. You've been crunching the numbers. Actually, we took a little break here, so
Yeah, we
Ryan could
did.
dig into the inflation numbers. What should we be looking at?
Well, so the inflation data that was released today found that the core rate of inflation remained the same at 4.3% year over year. Core inflation, which excludes energy and food basically, for August had been expected to run at 0.2%, but came in at 0.3%. That means that when the Fed meets next week, they're likely to keep interest rates where they are. Now, the leading driver of overall inflation this month was, as anybody would guess, rising gas prices. But we'll get into all of these numbers soon in a bit. Whenever you hear that the Fed is planning to raise interest rates to cool off the economy because of these inflation numbers that you're hearing, it's useful to understand what the titans of industry are really after. Now, I often try to explain that interest rates and unemployment are really about worker power, but nobody has explained it better than this guy, Tim Gurner, who's the founder of the Gurner Group. He spoke here recently at the Financial Review Property Summit. Here's his lesson.
I think the problem that we've had is that we have people decided they didn't really want to work so much anymore through COVID, and that has had a massive issue on productivity. Tradies have definitely pulled back on productivity. They have been paid a lot to do not too much in the last few years. And we need to see that change. We need to see unemployment rise. Unemployment has to jump 40, 50%, in my view. We need to see pain in the economy. We need to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around. I mean, there's been a systematic change where employees feel the employer is extremely lucky to have them, as opposed to the other way around. So it's a dynamic that has to change. We've got to kill that attitude, and that has to come through hurting the economy, which is what the whole global, the world is trying to do. The governments around the world are trying to increase unemployment to get that to some sort of normality. And we're seeing it. I think every employer now is seeing it. I mean, there is definitely massive layoffs going off. People might not be talking about it, but people are definitely laying people off, and we're starting to see less arrogance in the employment market, and that has to continue because that will cascade across the cost balance.
Now, Emily, believe it or not, it turns out that this was the avocado toast guy. Put up this next one. If people remember, this feels like 5-10 years ago at this point. There was this viral sensation going around where a dude said the reason that millennials can't afford to buy a home is that they buy too much avocado toast. This guy's back with a new take. And what's useful about this guy is that avocado toast idiocy was obvious idiocy, but it was the wisdom of the kind of Titan class distilled down to its essence. And by distilling it down, you can really see how idiotic it is in its purest form, because there are a bunch of people who were saying at the time, look, it's just these spendthrift millennials. That's the problem. Like, it's not that rent is too high. It's not that wages are down. It's not that there aren't enough jobs coming out of this, the financial crisis. It's that, yeah, they're just spoiled and spending money on avocado toast. But back to his point that he's making now, it's the same thing. It is what he's saying feels idiotic because he's just saying it so bluntly, but it is really the wisdom of the ruling class distilled down to its essence. And to me, what it suggests is that a capitalist class doesn't deserve to exist, because if they can't handle a full economy that is humming on all cylinders, that is employing as many people as it possibly can. Like, if they can't handle that, if their reaction to that is that they have to undermine it, then they should be thrown out. Like, let some other system in that can actually allow humanity to flourish in its full dignity. Like, what he's saying there is that we can't do this. Like, we don't know how to run a full economy, because if we're running a full economy, workers have power, and we don't like that. Now, you can go back to some of these inflation numbers. You put up this chart from recently. This shows kind of the direction that we're looking at. And so the headline number, it popping up because of gas prices, but overall you're seeing this kind of mountain. We climbed up the mountain in 2021, and we're heading down the other side of the mountain now. Now, the problem being, if you look at where prices were back in 2020, which saw massive deflation because of COVID, compared to where they are now, that's that's the gap that spells the headache that we're all living in. And so you do have food prices coming down, the numbers showed, but you have gas prices going up. Gas prices haven't gone up as much as people are worried about. We're probably going to see more pain on that front. But so what it means is that we're not going to see we're probably not going to see an inflation increase, an interest rate increase at the next Fed, but we're not going to see a cut either. I don't know, what's your takeaway on the avocado toast man returning to the discourse?
It's kind of annoying because what he's saying, you're right, is that the economy is not ordered in such a way that makes any sense. That's like it's kind of he's kind of right, right? Like in a sense, he's kind of right. His prescription is absurd, right? Like his prescription is that you can it's like the bootstrapism that like it's fine, like just stop spending on avocado toast. But when you talk to a lot of millennials, are you on the border of millennial?
A couple years away. I'm solidly Gen X, but I can see the millennials from where I am.
You empathize with the millennials.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. I'm a millennial. When you talk to other millennials, it's actually the nihilism of the student loan debt that they're in, of the the car debt that they're in, whatever it is, credit card debt that they're in, which delinquencies are spiking right now. When you talk to millennials, it's that sense of nihilism that's like, yeah, I'm going to buy $17 avocado toast because what the hell difference does it make? To paraphrase Hillary Clinton, what difference at this point does it make? Because I'm in tens of thousands of dollars of student loan debt. So you know what? The avocado toast, not going to kill me. Don't have a family to feed. Don't have kids. Don't have a mortgage. I just have this crazy rent payment that doesn't matter as much to me as a mortgage would because I don't own anything.
And it's one of the cheaper things on the menu. Like it's more expensive. It's more expensive than it should be, but it's also one of the more affordable things on that particular menu.
Cheaper than meat.
Yeah.
I don't know. We should look at we should dive into the inflation numbers, how they've affected avocado toast, because that might actually be a
lot of climate problems with avocados. Yeah.
Might actually be interesting. Yeah, and it's again a reminder of that in 2020, March 2020, everyone was like, oh boy, this supply chain thing is going to be a long-term problem. And even when the masks, at least for now, went away, and the sort of COVID lockdown policies for now went away, hopefully, when that stuff died down, I don't think we realized that we were still in the pandemic economy because of supply chain stuff and because of how crunched up everything else had been. Like, it's going to take years. We're 3 years after the pandemic, but it's going to take years to be in a different place.
Right, and the chain isn't the only problem, it's the supply part of it too.
Absolutely.
Like if you're seeing floods and droughts all over the world, and our hearts go out to 10,000 plus people in Libya washed away when a couple dams were destroyed in flooding.
2,000 in Morocco earlier this week.
In an earthquake, yeah. When you have those types of crises affecting supply, even if the chain is working perfectly, you can't pull avocados out of thin air.
And unelected, not just corporate leaders, but like unelected bureaucrats and also our elected people in Congress, presidents, made the system this way. So like when you kick the can, as some boomers would say, and punt responsibility, it's actually true that a lot of power was taken away from people in ordering this economy. Right. This is essentially an oligarchical organization of the economy that is causing so much pain right now.
And this is why I've pushed back so hard on the way that the mainstream media is talking about inflation over the last couple of years, because so much of it turned out to be about corporate greed, and a significant amount of it turned out to be about supply chain issues. And maybe you have some around government spending, like some small amount, like let's say 10% of it. But it was by no means the entire thing. The response of the kind of capital class is to blame all of it on the government spending, all of it on that 10%, to try to wipe that out, to then try to reduce worker power in the economy, because 10 years of full employment, 10 years of workers feeling the way that they do, that like the boss ought to be happy that they are there, which is, to me, the proper relationship between a worker and the company. The company should be grateful that they're there. 10 years of that could change our politics, could change our political economy. You go back to a situation where people feel lucky that they have the job, that creates a reactionary tendency among the population, and it pits people against each other, and allows kind of toxicity within the working class, within working people themselves, to rise, so that then the bosses can then and bring everybody back into the office if it's kind of a white collar thing, or keep wages down and abuse and harass people on the workplace if it's a blue collar thing, push down gig prices. And on and on. So much of it has to do with worker power. Karl Marx called the unemployed the reserve army of the capitalist class, because it's these millions of people who are off on the sidelines, who want to come into work but can't find work. And if the workers who have jobs make any demands, then bosses are able, reserve armies right at the gates, ready to come storm right through here.
Yeah, and actually Senator Rubio put out a report last week on basically what's become of many men, this increase in men since the 60s that are outside the workforce. And actually what we saw in the jobs numbers last week is a lot of people who were on the sidelines of the workforce saying, hey, these wages are looking pretty good. Maybe it's better than...
They're deserting the reserve army.
Yeah.
You want that reserve army to be routed.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.
Help us build independent news and get the full show every morning at breakingpoints.com.